Fine. Now, talking about the equals method. Okay, we have got a equals method for object class. Now, there are certain, we say yes, in Java, when you define a class, fine, you are responsible for how the behavior of that class. Okay, with equals method, you are defining the equality. Okay, now people who will be using your class, they expect a few things about the equality operation. Right? So let me just tell you what are the things which are expected for equals method. Fine. Okay. Okay. I'll put it in. Okay. I'll first write them and then comment it out. Okay. Okay. So what are the expectations about the equals method? Okay. Given a non-null object. Okay. Let's assume given non-null objects. Okay. So we're assuming it's not null. Okay. Non-null objects A and B. Okay. If there are two objects A and B. Okay. What is expected? One thing. Okay. First thing is A equals A should always be true. Okay, so when you override equals method, it is expected that you don't make this false. Others are expecting that this should not ever turn out to be false. Okay, another thing is A equals null should always be false. Right? Equality with null, comparison with null, where A is not null, right? If you compare with a null, that should be false. Okay. Another thing is A equals B. So symmetry, we want symmetry. That fine. A should be same as, should give me the same result as B equals A. Okay, and given non-null object C also, right? So let me, I think, given non-null objects A, B, and C. Okay. Okay. Fine. Now the third requirement is transitivity. Okay. This is an expectation. We expect it to be transitive. So that is A equals, if, right? We'll say if A equals B is true and B equals C is true, then A equals C should also be true. Okay, so these are some expectations from the equals method. When you override equals method, it is expected that this will be followed. Okay, fine, I'll put them in the comment now. Okay, fine, these are the expectations for the equals method. Okay, so fine. So let's check whether our equals method is going to be like this or not. Fine. So first thing, yes, we have written this code equals method for rectangle class. Okay. Fine. And okay, let's also have the equals method for cuboid. Okay, and you go to the cuboid and okay, so let's override now the, so we have overridden toString. Let's also override the equals method. Yeah, if you want, you can use the superclass equals method from here by using super.equals also, right? If needed, fine, you may do that. Yeah, so first thing, what do we do? Or okay, I think I'll also update. Fine, keeping that in mind, I'll put a couple of things in the beginning itself. Uh, okay. So first thing in the beginning, which I should be doing here is, instead of checking O instance of rectangle, yeah, there is something more which should be done here. What is it? If O equals null, okay, we should be returning false. Fine, we should do the null check. Okay, fine, because if someone gives me a null, right, and then you start using O instance of, then you get an error. There's no object in O. Okay, this will return anyway. O instance of rectangle would anyway have been false. Anyway, it was, but normally when you write equals method, the first two statements in the equals method are the first two if statements would be like this. If O equals this. Fine. So these are the statements which can normally just be put blindly. You can put in any equals method. The first two things you do is check for null, null then false, same object, return true. Okay, fine. Without looking at any other thing, these two statements can always be there. Okay, fine. First two checks, and then what are the other checks? Oh, well, if it is not a rectangle, it's not equal, right? Okay. Okay. Now, fine. So this is what we have already done in the super class. So now coming to the cuboid class. Super class is a rectangle. Fine. So if I put a statement which says if not super dot equals O, okay, that case return false. What all checks are happening here? In the super class, what all check has taken place? It has been able to check whether, first thing, null, okay, it has been able to check same object, it has been able to say whether it's an instance of rectangle. So if it's a cuboid, it's definitely a rectangle, right? So yes, so if it is cuboid, then it is a rectangle also, and therefore, fine. If it was not a cuboid, fine, it was not a rectangle. Okay, so it would have returned false there. Length matching is done, width matching is done. Okay, so I can additionally, I can first do a check because that's only testing for rectangle. I need to check for cuboid. Okay, so I can say if not O instance of cuboid C, then return false. And another check which I can add is if this dot height is not equal to C dot, okay, and after all the checks, yes, we will say return true. Okay, and so this equals method should be fine. And so equals method for cuboid using the equals method from rectangle. Okay, fine. So now let's test our equals method in the test cuboid class. Okay, so we have the, okay, let me save that cuboid.java file first, and Let's go to the test cuboid. Okay, so at the end, yeah, we have got one C1 is of type cuboid. R2, I think what do we have in R2? Cuboid, right? 754. C1 is cuboid, 754. Okay, let's test out. Okay. Or okay, let's have system dot out dot println r1 dot equals c1. What do you think? True or false? And let's test out something like this. C1 equals R1. So what do you think? Yeah, it's like, testing the symmetry now. R1 is of type rectangle. Okay. C1 is of type cuboid. So R1 equals C1. What do you think? True or false? That should be. Okay. What about this one? This one? C1 equals R1. Okay. Let's run the code and test it. Let's check. Yeah. Let's run the test cuboid. First one is saying true. Second one is saying false. R1 equals C1. That has turned out to be true. And this is turning out to be false. What is the reason? Oh, what do we expected? What did we expect? First one to be false. We were expecting this also to be false, but this is turning out to be true. What's the reason? When we are saying R1 equals C1, it's using the equals method from rectangle class. Okay. Let's look at the equals method of rectangle class. Yeah. What is the check? It is null? No. It's the same object? No. If not O instance of rectangle, you have a cuboid. Is it a rectangle? Instance of, when we do an instance of check. So, fine. So this turns out to be, if not O instance of this, oh, it will pass this test. Cuboid is a rectangle. Fine. Cuboid being a subclass becomes a rectangle, and therefore this check is okay for me when done with the rectangle class. And length matches, yes, length matches, width matches, width matches. Okay, so they are equal. Okay, so what is our requirement now? Let's change it slightly. Equals method. When are the two rectangles going to be equal? The problem here is with the use of instance of. Should we be using the instance of here or some other way? That object should be a rectangle only, right? I'm not interested in the subclass. With instance of, even subclass will qualify. Oh, you want only the rectangle to qualify. Then how do we do that? Yeah. What's the change we can make here? if, okay, so yeah, this is the first one, and so we'll comment this out, the earlier one, and let's make a change here. If yeah, what goes in this if? This dot get class is not equal to O dot get class. Class object, cuboid is a different class object, rectangle has a different class object. Okay. And we are saying the current object, whatever is there, O should be of the same class. Fine. So we are not looking at subclasses now. Okay, but it will take care of someone invoking a method on cuboid. So if someone invokes this method on cuboid, and so from cuboid, if someone is saying super dot equals, okay, we are testing the object is of the same type. The parameter O is of the same type as the current object with which you are comparing. Okay, fine. So this is the change which should have been there, and we can go into the cuboid and make some update here in the equals method. Okay, we don't need this. Fine, we won't need this now. Okay, this is not needed since this is taken care in the superclass. The equals method of superclass is taking care whether it is of the same type. They are both of the same type. And so when we are saying if not super dot equals O, it is even testing for me whether it is a cuboid object or not. Okay. Okay. Here, right, this one. When we comment, so this dot get class, what is this? If it's using super dot equals, this is the cuboid object. It is testing whether O is a cuboid object or not. If this happens to be a cuboid object, this happens to be a rectangle object, then fine. Compare that O also has to be a rectangle object. Fine, clear how the equals method has been overridden in the rectangle and cuboid class again, right? Okay, now, fine, so clear with the equals method, fine. So now the exercise part, which is with relation to the account class, right? So in account class, we will consider two account objects to be equal if their account numbers match. Okay, if the account numbers match, we'll consider them as equals and no other criteria. Okay, so two account objects will be equal if their account numbers are matching. Fine, we are not comparing name and any other thing, but we'll compare the account numbers. Okay, and so that's in your exercise part. Okay, and yeah, so this is